Welcome to another edition of the Good and Plenty podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Goodman, and thanks for joining us again. Our guest this week, we're going to preview college hoops. Starts up this Tuesday in Indianapolis, Champions Classic. Nothing like getting it started with a bang in the undercard, Michigan State, Kansas. And then we got the heavyweight battle, Duke, Kentucky. And we'll talk to Fox's Doug Gottlieb on the show today, and we'll preview plenty involving college basketball. You can subscribe, obviously, to the Good and Plenty podcast every Tuesday NBA edition, every Thursday college hoops edition. Subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. You can find me at watchstadium.com, where I wrote a story this morning, and we are recording this on Wednesday. And the story was kind of an interesting one. If you haven't seen it, go to watchstadium.com. And it involved the CEO and president of a Florida prep school called Nation Christian Academy named Mike Woodbury, goes by Woody. And he was on YouTube in a profanity-laced tirade talking to one of his players, a kid from Haiti, Marvin's Pishin. And the stuff he said was incredible. I mean, absolutely incredible. You know, basically told him, threatened to send this kid back to Haiti, called himself the dirtiest, baddest mother you know what in the program. Take your broke asses, I'll say it again, your broke asses back to the garage. I don't want to hear from you. The bottom line, get the F out. Just walk the F out. I don't give a shit. I control transcripts. I control where you go next. Could be back to Haiti, mother bleep. That's how easy it is for me. And I spoke to both Woodbury and the kid. Spoke to Woodbury Tuesday night after driving back from the Celtics game at about 1:30 in the morning. And he threw out plenty of accusations at the kid. You know, that the kid stole, that the kid was drinking in the house, in his room, that he threw himself on a girl, a little bit of everything, you know. And then I talked to the kid, Pishin, on Wednesday morning, early in the morning, and he said, no, that wasn't the case. He didn't have any alcohol in the house, and he lived at the house where Mike Woodbury and his wife reside, didn't steal anything, has missed one day of school, where Woodbury claims that he missed several days and kicked him out for skipping school, and he wasn't trying to extort anyone. And that was another one of the big allegations from Woodbury, that they were trying to be extorted by some information that Pishin had basically gotten out of an iPad from somebody who ran the school along with Woodbury, who lived with Woodbury, who has a relationship with Woodbury. So this was insane. I mean, absolutely insane the way this thing blew up. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me afterwards, a lot of coaches, whether it's college coaches, former players from Woodbury's days at Maine or current. And some of the stories they're telling are just incredible. You know, that they're in hotels back playing AU ball when they were in Maine on the road, and he's coming to their rooms asking for if any of them have nude photos and taking a look at the nude photos. And the mother of one of the players that just left this school, Nation Christian Academy in Florida, I talked to her, and she said, listen, there weren't doors on the bathroom stalls. They weren't getting fed properly. The bus didn't come to pick up my son 10 or 15 minutes away. He lived 10, 15-minute drive away in these apartments, and the bus didn't come, so they told him to call an Uber, and he had to pay for it. So this was a complete disaster, and I've never seen more people come out against a particular coach than I've seen out of this guy, Mike Woodbury. And when Woodbury talked to me, he didn't deny any of it. And I said to him, I said, do you regret saying it? Do you regret the conversation and what you said? He said, no, F no. Crazy. I mean, just insane the way this has come right now. You'd think more and more after the Mike Rice fiasco and some of these other guys getting fired, Doug Wojcik, that guys like this would understand that kids are going to come out now. You start treating people like this. This isn't back in the Bobby Knight days. You can't do this anymore. And this guy was at a whole nother level. Again, if you haven't heard it, you got to listen to the audio. Go to watchstadium.com. Remarkable story. I hope this guy never, ever, ever coaches or deals with any kids again. Like to me, just get him out of every level of basketball. He should never be around a kid again, teaching him anything, whether it's academic, whether it's athletic. I don't care. I've heard too many stories, and where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's a lot of smoke around Mike Woodbury. So, again, that's where I stand with this. Now we will get to our guest, and that is Fox's Doug Gottlieb. We're talking some college hoops, previewing the season.
Today's episode is brought to you by Charlotte's Web, the world's most trusted hemp extract. CBD is getting popularity in the health and wellness world, and it feels like everybody is talking about it. And I want to introduce you guys to Charlotte's Web. They are the industry leader who sells broad spectrum whole plant extract with CBD in the forms of oils, capsules, and topicals. Charlotte's Web CBD isn't intoxicating, but it does have some pretty powerful benefits working with your body's existing endocannabinoid system. People love Charlotte's Web's oils and capsules because they support management of everyday stress, helping in supporting restful sleep cycles and maintaining a sense of calm and focus. It's also known for helping athletes recover from exercise-induced inflammation. We hear it all the time in sports, how guys want to use this stuff to help them get over injuries. Customers trust Charlotte's Web because they grow and hand-tend more than 250,000 hemp plants in the U.S. Their hemp is responsibly farmed without any pesticides, herbicides, or fungicides. The extract is filtered 5 times for quality and consistency. You might have questions about hemp extract and how CBD works. Research it on your own. You might be surprised by what you find. And Charlotte's Web is offering a unique discount for our listeners. Jump over to cwhemp.com, enter the code GOOD at checkout for 10% off your Charlotte's Web hemp extract purchase, which ships to all 50 states. They have a 30-day risk-free guarantee, so you have nothing to lose. Give it a shot today. That's cwhemp.com. Enter the code GOOD at checkout for 10% off your Charlotte's Web hemp extract purchase. Some exclusions apply. See website for full details. And these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Now pleased to welcome in Doug Gottlieb. I figured he was the right guy to go with for kind of the preseason pod. You know, I feel like, we can argue, we can go at it a little bit. We'll agree on some things, and we'll agree to disagree on some things. And can I start out by agreeing to disagree on your top 10 player of the year poll that I'm doing for Stadium, where I'm polling 10 media people, and I got your poll in, and I thought, honestly, your poll might have come from Wayne Tinkle.
Why is that? Because I included Trace Tinkle?
Yes, you at number 4.
Well, here's what. Oh, I didn't know it was in order. I just gave you 10 dudes. My bad.
All right. Well, any way you cut it. Trey Tinkle at 4, Trey Tinkle at 10.
Why?
Listen. I was surprised because nobody else had him in the top 10. Nobody else, I bet, would have had him in their top 20. I was just surprised. That's all. I was surprised.
Well, here's the way I look at it. Okay, and I do think you can appreciate this. I understand that there are guys that are going to be drafted in the NBA draft, and that's going to being drafted in the NBA draft is going to make people think, and by mid-season they'll start to crank it up and score more points. But if you think a kid who's 18, 19 years old is a better player than a fourth-year junior in Trace Tinkle, you need to watch more, right in college basketball right now. You need to watch more hoop. And
there aren't many. You're right. There aren't many freshmen that are going to come out of the gates and be better than seniors.
Right. And look, and obviously, RJ Barrett I put on there because he's the best Dookie. Yes. And it's not really close. He's the best Dookie. And and I know that there are other ones, that there are other Dookies, there are Kentucky kids that you could easily put on that list. But the fact is, when we watch those teams play next week in Indianapolis, it's going to be ragged at times because they've never played a college basketball game.
It always is.
And returners are ahead of the curve. There's a saying in college basketball: get old and stay old, right? Especially for teams that are not Duke and Kentucky and Kansas. But even Duke and Kentucky and Kansas, who do you have on your list from Kansas? as
Dedrick Lawson. Everybody
right,
is. Dedrick Lawson.
Right.
Not Quentin Grimes.
Right. Now, is Dedrick Lawson as good an NBA prospect as Quentin Grimes?
Hell no.
No, because Dedrick Lawson is kind of a step slow, and he's got kind of a vet old man game, right? But he's a fourth-year junior who's had the ball in his hands a bunch, who can play the 3, the 4, the 5, and out of the chute, like Quentin Grimes is going to be up and down. He can't shoot that well right now because he's so young, and he'll develop into he has better upside. But the question wasn't about, you didn't ask me about draft picks. You didn't ask me about end of the season or about upside. You asked me like player of the year. And to me, player of the year is going to be about overall production for just this season. And I think Trace Tinkle is going to have a great year with his overall production.
Yeah, no, listen, I do too. I just don't know how relevant. It'll be interesting to see if Oregon State's relevant. We're not going to spend too much time on that in this podcast.
Well, no, but it's one of those things in which when we try and rank teams to start the year, it's like Clemson. Okay, so I went down to Clemson for Stadium, company you work for, obviously.
Yep.
And I got to do, we do a pregame for college football. And I walk over to the basketball program, and, they're ranked, I think, 17th in the country by some people. Like, they have 4 fifth-year seniors. 4 fifth-year seniors. Like, if you think Clemson, who's going down to the Caymans, they're going to mop up that tournament because they got really good players. They played an NCAA tournament, and they got 4 fifth-year dudes, and they're just older. They're just better. They're going to be. And so when you're trying to forecast who's going to be good for the first 2 or 3 months of the season, just remember the expression, get old and stay old. Those teams that have returners. And, for example, Oregon State has 2 of the 5 best returning players in the Pac-12. They should be ahead of the curve early, and they should be able to carry that to having a better season than other teams that have kind of more upside and potential.
Are you going, if you had to pick a player of the year at the end of the year, I'm going RJ Barrett. I just don't think he's like a freshman, Doug. Like, I just feel like he's so mature.
Yes. And he's played at a very, very high level before this. I think he's been really well coached. I also think that Duke smartly playing their tournament in Canada. It's one of the things that when Cal does it in the Bahamas, like this stuff is genius. It gives them, because you have to play real basketball, and like people will think that's shitting on AAU basketball, but it's not. It's just my dad was a head coach in college basketball. Okay. My 2 coaches in high school, Tom McCluskey and Andy Brown. Tom McCluskey played for Dick Harder at Penn State, and Andy Brown played professionally, and he played at Hawaii Hilo. Like, I was as well coached as any kid has ever been when they step on a college campus. You know what? And my the first 2 months of practice, I sucked. You know why? Because I never played real college basketball against real men who set real screens, and you play real defense, right? Like, you think you have, but you don't. It's also the part about the college experience which we don't express enough. Where all these, we have so many pundits that are like, well, these kids need to get paid. What do they actually get out of college? What you get out of college is experience that you cannot get anywhere else. Real basketball, real scatter reports, real offense, real defense, understanding spacing. And anyway, my point is that that if you've never played a real basketball game, it is a culture shock. And then you're going through the culture shock of being an actual student athlete as well. So, but I do think RJ Barrett, because he's at Duke, because of how well he's prepared, and because, frankly, he's surrounded by young guys that some of his weaknesses won't be as exposed as much, but also because they have the one thing that you need for young players, and they have a pass-first point guard who's going to create and make him look even better when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. If you said RJ Barrett's going to have a great year, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you.
All right, so Zion Williamson.
Yeah.
To me, he's kind of going to be a lightning rod this year. Like, I've said it. I was talking to Kyrie Irving last night after the game a little bit about him, and I said I think Zion's going to be unbelievable in college, really, really good, and I worry about him, or I wonder about him at the NBA level. But in college, who's going to check him, Doug? I mean, seriously, he's so big, strong, athletic. He can do whatever the hell he wants against most of these guys because they're so inferior athletically. Agree or no?
I do. I mean, look, he's going to have to continue to show he can make shots. I would say that you're going to guard him with a big guy, and you're going to play off him and make him make shots. Look. Here's the real scouting report on Zion Williamson. He is a freak in terms of straight line drives and running and jumping vertically, an absolute freak. Laterally, he's average at best. He's average at best or below average as a shooter.
Yes.
He does have a pretty high basketball IQ, and it's going to be about not just how hard he works, because he's obviously put in the work in the weight room, but does he work smartly in terms of developing more lateral skills and developing defensively laterally? Because everybody thinks that, we can just create the next Draymond Green. Like, the reason Draymond can't shoot at all. Like,
Nope.
I don't know if it's his shoulder last year or his knee this year, whatever, but he's invaluable. Why? Because he can switch ball screens. He can guard guys in the low post. He can switch out onto a guard and be reasonably effective. He's tough. And the thing with Zion Williamson is he tough? Can he move laterally? And then here's the other thing. The weight the weight's always going to be an issue. Like, he's just big boned, right? And as much as there are some guys that once they start to lose the weight, they always keep it off. But there are other guys that constantly always fight that. And you can sit there and go like, hey, he can play at 260, 270, but there's a reason no one's ever done it, right? Your body breaks down. It's too much stress on your knees and your ankles and your back. So I do think the weight's an issue. I do think the lateral movement, and I think the shooting's an issue, that he's going to have to, you can't be a shrink 4. You got to be a stretch 4 or 5 in order to play. I don't think I don't think he's a guard. I think his position in the NBA is a multifaceted, power forward. But at the college level, there's going to be a lot of nights where Duke just out-athlete Dukes, right? But
Doug, I'll give you here's my best lineup for Duke. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm nuts, whatever. Trey Jones, obviously running the point. Reddish and RJ on the wings.
Yep.
Alex O'Connell and Zion at the 5.
Yes, I like it. That's what I would do.
Right?
That's what I would do. You make a college 5-man. Like, look, Derek. Here's the correlation. And I'm not sitting here telling you that Derek Williams at Arizona is as good as Zion Williamson. But the reason Derek Williams was so massively overdrafted was Sean Miller figured out, hey, if I play him at the 5, he's got a mismatch every time down the court. And Derek Williams kind of similarly was a below-average shooter who he made a bunch. Remember, he had like a broken finger on his offhand, and he was making like 60% of his threes.
He had a great year.
And then he's just a ferocious dunk. Yeah, he had a great year. I completely agree with you. Zion Williamson is – now, look, are there going to be times in which at the power forward and the small forward you get out-rebounded? Yeah, but you're going to be able to spread out the floor, and Zion will be able to attack 5 men, and you should be able to play against zones and pressure people and switch defensively. Absolutely.
Who's the team that you're riding this year? I mean, listen, everybody's got the same 4, I think, at the front. I actually think Virginia now closed the gap a little bit with Braxton Key being eligible due to that waiver recently. But who's that team? I mean, Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, Gonzaga, Virginia. Are you on board, first of all, with those 5? Are at a different level than everybody else?
Well, the Kansas one's the interesting one because of the D'Souza thing. And, look, I had Mike DeCourcy on my podcast last week, and DeCourcy brought up a great point that I haven't heard anybody else bring up. It's like the NCAA can come in and say what all these things that Kansas did wrong, but we have a federal prosecutor in federal court saying that Kansas was the victim. So it's a really hard thing to say, like, hey, we're going to fire a coach for doing something wrong when they have, court testimony, which they believe proves that they were the victim. Okay. So I don't think Bill Self is in danger. I don't think unless there's some smoking gun that I'm not aware of, or unless when the assistant coaches go to trial, somehow somebody throws Kansas under the bus. I don't think he loses his job. On the other hand, Sousa, does he play? That's a big part of their depth. Is there anybody else that gets caught up in the wash of the investigation? Kansas would be my only team that I'm like, I just don't know if I could go all in. But yes, generally I'm good with riding those 5 more than 4. I think what happens, at Virginia is we so overvalue that one embarrassing performance against UMBC that we forget they didn't have Hunter, and they were the best team in the ACC last year, and they bring back a lot of, and it's not like this is the first time they've been good. They've been close. They should have beaten Syracuse, a couple years ago, and they should have been better in the tournament last year. I would include Virginia in that mix, and one reason is that they have some age as well as some talented youth.
I was so blown away at ACC Media Day listening to Kyle Guy. So blown away. Like, so mature, just gets it, hits it head on, laughing about the fact that, so they stayed at the same exact hotel in Charlotte for Media Day that they stayed in before they lost to UMBC. And he walks up, they get off the bus or whatever. It wasn't a bus because it was Tony Bennett, Jack Sultan, and Kyle Guy that went for Media Day. They get out of the car, van, whatever they were taking, and the guy out front says, "Welcome back." And Kyle Guy just looks at him and starts laughing. But imagine that. I love the maturity. I love the fact that Tony Bennett has made it kind of his mission over the offseason to say, like, no, we're not hiding from this. We're not running from this. We know we're getting this question, and we're going to learn from it. We're going to get better, not only as basketball players, but like as people going through this and making history. We are going to get better. And again, we're just going to hit it head on. And we know we're getting the question everywhere we go until we win a game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And I love that. I think they're DeAndre Hunter. They didn't play with last year against UMBC. I think they would have won had they had him, but who cares at this point? I think he's healthy. Guy's a year older. Ty Jerome. You add in Braxton Key. They got this freshman from California they really like that's a change of pace point guard defensively who can really get after people. So and Tony Bennett's a hell of a coach. Yeah, look,
I had a long it started with like this long text back and forth with Tony, and as you know, like, he's the real deal as a human being. Like, he's unbelievable. And then we got to this philosophical discussion about, because I'm a big, like you're talking about playing small with Duke, right? I'm a big proponent of it. I've tried to, in the limited times I coached, when I coached in Israel, not the summer before, we played the Israeli national team and we got our asses kicked, and we played with two big guys. And then at some point I was like, why don't we play our five best players, right? It was my biggest frustration when I was at Oklahoma State my junior year. Had we simply played small, which we played one time the entire year, we're down like 20 to Texas at home. We played we played Desmond Mason at the 5, and we came back, and we never did it again. Like just the idea is, I'm a big proponent of it because it works two ways. One, you handle the ball better, you generally shoot better, you space the court better. But people are always worried about defense and rebounding. Well, one, how people are going to attack you, right?
Sure.
And two, it actually helps because sometimes you play a team and you're going small, and they're like, all right, we're going to throw it into the post. And they stop doing everything else because they're like, we got a mismatch. Well, one, there aren't a lot of good post scorers in college basketball. Hell, there's not a lot of good post scorers in the NBA, let alone college basketball. Two, a lot of times that's the weakest part of somebody's offense. And three, they get stagnant and they get away from going to their star wings and going to their ball screen stuff. And so they become easier to guard. And yes, you're going to have rebounding issues. But if I say I'm going to give up 5 more offensive rebounds, but I'm going to create more turnovers and shoot a higher percentage from 3, that's a trade-off I'm willing to make. And so anyway, so we got into this conversation about it, and he was talking about, well, listen, we're just better with Hunter at the 4. And I was like, no, Tony, Hunter at the 5. That's where you change.
Yep.
And he was like, it's so hard for me.
Yeah,
and he loves Jack Salt. And I was like, look, I like Jack Salt too. Plus Jack Salt is isn't that one of the great names? It's so
great kid. Like, but that's Tony. Tony's loyal. He's like loyal to a fault that he won't do that to Jack Salt.
I don't think it's doing it to Jack Salt. I think it's that it's the coach what you know. Yeah. Coach what you know. This is John Beeline 101. Coach what you know. And you get caught trying to coach somebody else's offense, somebody else's style. It's really hard. I think it's coach what you know, and I also think that and this does give credence to it. I mean, like, look, Roy Williams has won a couple of national championships. They run essentially the same stuff they ran when I played against them. Tom Izzo's been really successful. They're running basically the same sets over the last 25 years. So as much as we want college coaches to evolve and to try new things, and like, look, Mike Krzyzewski, he evolved last year, different offensively, zone defensively. Did he win a championship? The answer is no, right? So,
you do it different ways. Yeah.
I think you do it different ways, but I also know that it's hard for guys to evolve. So anyway, I'm with you on Virginia. I think they're the team that maybe is most.
Yeah.
Who wins it all?
Who wins it all? Who's the last team? Like, who are you? You're betting your house on one team this year. Who is it?
I feel like this is the year for Kansas.
Wow.
And I
too many distractions for me. I think they're going to have too many distractions.
That's fair. That is the caveat, right? That is the caveat. Otherwise, I would probably go with Duke because not only do they have R.J. Barrett and they have Jones as well, but I feel like those kids are also winners. They're not just super talented; they're winners. But I would go with Kansas, and in addition to having Grimes, who's won internationally, they have the age, they have the experience of some of those guys playing in the Final Four. If you have D'Souza back, you got guys that have played in the Final Four. I think you got a bunch of different factors in there. You have a lot of depth, but D'Souza being suspended and the distractions would if we took away all of that, I would say it's Kansas.
You know who
the
I'm
sneaky
going
team.
with, right? You know
hold on, there's one other.
Go ahead.
You're going with Kentucky?
I am absolutely. Give me a hole. Give me something they don't have. You can't.
Well, I mean, I know everybody's salivating over Hero.
He can shoot it, Doug. He can shoot it.
Oh, dude, hold on. He can do way more than just calling him a shooter is underselling.
No, I know. I got you.
He's got what we like to call, and I don't know if you're allowed. He's got what we like to call shit in his game.
Yes,
he can do a lot of shit. Like what's a lot of shit? Watch Tyler Hero's videos. Watch him play. He's got some shit in his game. He's got nuts. He'll take big shots. He is fearless. He can put it on the deck. He can really. But remember, when Tyler Hero plays, that means somebody else doesn't play. And you got a bunch of guys there that are they going to buy in and defend? When they won a national championship with the young guys, their best player was their best defensive player. Anthony Davis couldn't score if you locked him in the gym back when he was at Kentucky, right? He learned to solely score, but they also had some age and experience around. They had a couple of older guys, which they have a little bit of this year, but I'm intrigued to see how the egos work on that team. And if a Tyler Hero comes in and he's not shooting well, does his defensive weaknesses, lapses, does that become obvious? And Cal is unbelievable. I love watching him coach because he finds a way. He knows how to push their buttons and get more out of them, and they get better individually as time goes on. But who's their best player in your opinion?
They don't have Reed Travis is the guy that I think was the missing piece because he gives you a veteran who's tough. He rebounds. They don't have a best player.
But he's never won in college basketball. And I like Reed. True. And he's had a bunch of injuries. Yep. He's never won. He also is a guy who, volume-wise, used to get in the basketball in his hands a lot. He can at times be a little bit below the rim, which I don't really care about in college basketball, but there are some athletic limitations. But yes, I like that. Well, Reed Travis, he's not a rim protector, right? So, can he get the rest of them to buy in defensively? Because, you're not going to win unless why has Villanova won 2 of the last 3 championships? Can they can they take your bigs and bring them outside and shoot? Sure. But the reason that Villanova's gone from being out of the tournament the second game 4 years in a row to being a national championship 2 of the last 3 years is those are the toughest suckers on the planet, right? They're tough, they're cohesive, they play great defense, and they rebound, they don't turn the basketball over. And I don't know if you have that from Kentucky. I'm with
Keldon
you.
Keldon Johnson's a killer. He's a killer to me. He's going to be their best player in a sense of if you include the intangibles. He's not a great shooter. That does worry me a little bit. But I think if you play, to me again, like you go Hero's got to play a lot. Keldon's going to play a lot. they're going to rotate in like 4 bigs, right? They're going to rotate in probably 4 bigs. P.J. Washington, he's going to play a lot. Reed Travis is going to play. I don't know about Nick Richards. He could be buried. Like, it wouldn't shock me if Nick Richards gets buried again.
And again, how does that work? How does that work in a locker room, right? If Nick Richards like, dude, I came back and now I'm playing 15 minutes a night. Like, are you kidding
Injuries,
me? Like, again,
you know how injuries happen, and usually it works itself out. Usually, or a guy leaves midseason, right? I got it, but yep. 3-point guards. They got 2.5 point guards. I love that. Ashton Hagans can make people better. Quickly's talented, and Quade's not really a point. You know, you play him, he's kind of a combo. He's great as your 3rd point guard, right? Wouldn't you agree? Really good as your 3rd point guard.
As a 2nd point guard on the floor, he's terrific. Now, his limitations became obvious last year, and they quickly figured out he wasn't a point guard and that Shea was. But yes, if he's as a returning sophomore with all of that experience from last year, if he's your 2nd ball handler on the floor, I think you're in good shape. But again, like, how does he handle? So far, he answers everything perfectly. But, you know, if you get into the season and he plays 10, 15 minutes because the young kids are better, how does he handle that? So I don't know. But look, we're all in the same spot with the 4 or 5 teams. Let me give you.
Give me
I already gave you Clemson. I'm going to give you 2 other super interesting teams. Okay. Kansas State. Now, Kansas State.
I'm not buying them. I'm not buying them as a Final Four team. I'm just not.
Well, I didn't say as a Final Four favorite, but I think, and I don't even think, no one believes that they'll win the Big 12 because Kansas always wins the Big 12. But there's a team that they've seen some success, and they have a deep roster that can play small and can play big. They have some athletic wing talent with Xavier Sneed. Barry Brown can carry you. Dean Wade's back. Like, they got 2 point guards. Like, that's a really, really good team of guys who you're like, yeah.
I'm with you.
Like I said with Clemson. And I'll give you one other team, which I don't know. I have no idea how good they'll actually be, but I think they're fascinating. You started talking about Hero, and you have to understand that for Marquette to not get Hero, it's a disappointment. For Wisconsin to not get Hero is devastating, right? Like, here's a white kid that's got some bounce that can go. Like, he's the next Decker, right? Sam Decker type.
Yep.
And they didn't get him. And I think this is a huge year, considering they're coming off a year where they had some injuries. They didn't make the NCAA tournament. It doesn't mean that they're going to, and I like Brad Davidson. He's a tough sucker. Now, he's not crazy athletic, but he can make shots. Ethan Happ, there was a lot of rumors that Ethan Happ was going to try and leave and go play somewhere he could win. He comes back. Trice has come back off injury. Iverson's back as well. So I think, I don't know how good they'll be, but where the Big Ten is, there's a lot of mystery there to see who's any good and who's not. Like, I'm intrigued by Wisconsin because Minnesota now is keeping kids home. Chicago still, they're not getting the Kaminsky gifts. Northwestern, the famous was Kaminsky visited Northwestern, and Bill Carmody, Bill Carmody wasn't there, didn't come to campus.
Right. And didn't his dad go to school there? I think his dad went to school there.
Dad or his mom, whatever.
Somebody, yeah.
But it was bad. Like, he wanted to go to Northwestern, and he no-showed on an unofficial visit, right? And talked to him on the phone when he's standing in his office. But Chicago is a much tougher putt now with Illinois recruiting it and Northwestern doing better, and it's a tough putt. And if you can't keep the kids, you can't keep the 1 or 2 best players home, and one goes to Marquette and one goes to Kentucky. Like, you got to start winning some games. But I'm fascinated to see Wisconsin, because this is a year in which you don't have to have superstar NBA talent to win the Big Ten. And I think that they have good enough players with Davidson and Happ and others back to which they better win. Otherwise, it's once you get buried and you lose momentum as a program, it's hard to get it back.
Today's show was also brought to you by Blue Chew. Guys, you remember those days when you're always ready to go? Well, now you can increase your performance and get a little extra confidence in bed just by going to BlueChew.com. That's blue like the color blue, BLUE Chew.com. Brings you the first chewable with the same FDA-approved active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, so you know They work. You can take them anytime, day or night, or even on a full stomach. And since they're chewable, they work up to twice as fast as a pill, so you can be ready whenever an opportunity arises. Now, I got to be honest with you guys. It's maybe in the works. Did I get some of this? I don't really know. I don't really need this, but it was, you always have to kind of do it in your own, they always want a little testimonial, right, attached to these ad reads. And I thought it would be a fun idea to maybe give it a shot and see how it goes. I'll let you know as time progresses. Trust me. Blue Chew is prescribed online and shipped straight to your door in a discreet package. It can get embarrassing sometimes. So no in-person doctor's visit, no waiting in the pharmacy. Best of all, we all know this, no more awkwardness. And since they're made in the USA, and since Blue Chew prepares and ships direct, they're cheaper than a pharmacy. Go and look up what some of these pills cost. They are outrageous. Trust me, this is a much more viable and cost-friendly way to go about this, folks. And right now, we got a special deal for our listeners. Visit BlueChew.com. Get your first shipment free when you use the special promo code GOOD at checkout. Just pay the $5 to ship it to you. That's Blue, B-L-U-E, Chew.com. Promo code GOOD. Try it for free. Get that $5. All you do is pay for the $5 shipping. Blue Chew is the better, cheaper, faster choice, and we thank them for sponsoring the podcast.
You think any of these guys get fired that were involved in the the court, the FBI, whether it's Self, whether it's a Sean Miller, whoever? Do you think anybody gets fired? And then number two, we got to go with this one. Does Rick Pitino ever coach again? And if so, what level?
I think he can coach in the NBA. Look, I think Rick Pitino is actually a much better coach than a lot of these other guys. And just as a basketball coach, unbelievable coach.
But can his ego handle dealing with the NBA now? Like, has he changed enough that he could pull back? I cover those Celtics teams, and man, those guys hated him because he wouldn't shut up. I mean, it just didn't work from an ego standpoint. Same thing with Calipari. Can Rick pull back? Can he change at this stage of the game?
I think Calipari can, because Calipari, he really gets the psychology of some of these guys, and I think he can change psychologically. I just don't think Calipari would or should, right? Like,
is he a good enough coach? Is he a good enough coach anyway?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
I don't think people have a healthy respect for how good of coaches those guys are. So
most NBA teams aren't going to touch either one of those guys. Let's face it, for differing reasons. Like, again, we all know Pitino's a hell of a coach, but
yeah,
are you really?
But look, I think Pitino could, because he's such a good coach, and because I think he could fool some people into getting the job. Like, if you ever met him, you're like, I'll commit right now. I don't even have any eligibility. Right? He's amazing, and I do think he's a really good coach. And I the hard thing for him would be getting the job, not keeping the job. For Calipari, getting the job would be easy. It would be keeping the job, because at some point, either you need to hand the reins to somebody who else is going to X and O, and he needs to dial back. I think he would dial back the screaming at dudes once he got to the NBA, because the NBA, it's about egos and massaging them, and he knows them. With him, it's about, can he, a split second, finding mismatches, drawing up plays. It's not nearly as basic. It's far more advanced than people ever give credit. I don't know. Does Rick Pitino coach again? I'm going to say, yeah, they all have Dave.
I think he coaches college, Doug. I think he coaches like
UNLV?
Auburn, like Bruce got Auburn, Kelvin Sampson got Houston. Yeah, I think he gets something like that. In that, like you said, UNLV, if a St. John's opened up, something like that.
Yes, I'm with you. I think it will happen. Everybody, they all coach. Huh?
Should he? Or should he be done? Should he be done and be blackballed from college basketball? Because
I don't think he should be blackballed. I don't think he should be blackballed. Like, look, I think Pitino before they won a national championship, back when I was at ESPN, one year he came up and he did a lot of post-game stuff, and I felt like he wanted to do the TV thing. I think he'd be great on TV. But I think ultimately he ends up on TV. Should he be? Look, everybody has their time to which somebody taps them and goes like, hey, dude, it's over.
Yeah.
Well,
should it be one of those things now where, Doug, we start to try to clean up the game a little bit, scare some people and say like, all right, if, Rick Pitino, whoever else, you're done. You're done. You're found guilty. Whoever, if there's phone calls.
With Pitino, it's like, how many times can there be stories which either this guy has the worst luck ever, or all of these things, or at least some of them are in fact true. So yeah, I'm great with give young guys a chance, man. Give young guys a chance.
Had your turn.
Like, do we have to? Had your turn. You had 30 years in the sun. You made a ton of money. Go enjoy your grandkids.
Go to Miami.
Go to the beach.
Right. Go back to Miami or be on TV, like you said. Show, impart your wisdom on us. And I think his Twitter account will be very, very entertaining during games. Like, I can't wait to see him when I'm sitting home watching a game. I hope he tweets about the intricacies of the game. Like, I really do. I think he could be great. He could be the best follow for college basketball on Twitter ever.
Yeah.
I mean, what coach like that is on Twitter that's had that type of success? And again, if you're picking, I'll give you this. If you're picking one coach to coach a national title game, talent equal, who are you picking? I would say Rick Pitino's in the conversation. Has to be. In the
conversation, absolutely. In the conversation, absolutely. What I think is amazing is I'll leave you with this, is how we do have a tendency to look at things as if they're stagnant. And Jay Wright went from a guy who people thought couldn't coach and was just an empty suit to he's an incredible basketball coach.
Yeah. Changes quick, doesn't it?
Yep. But if you watch, though, there was an evolution over time. He understood his flaws and he got better.
That's what we say about you. Same thing. Here's the same scouting report on you. Exactly. All right. I know you got to run.
Go.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Thanks for joining us again. Another edition of Good and Plenty in the Books. You can feel free again to subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, CLNS Media. You can find me at Goodman Hoops on Twitter. Also go to watchstadium.com. You can find the story that we talked about earlier with the verbal abuse by the CEO of the prep school down in Florida. And join us every Tuesday again, NBA edition of Good and Plenty, every Thursday, college edition. And I want to thank Doug Gottlieb for joining us. Doug's good because you know what? There's no bullshit with Doug Gottlieb, period. So we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.